recommendations are they putting forward for inclusion into the report that would be consolidated from other provinces? I usually prefer to ask volunteers of the rapporteurs from the two groups who want to go first. Any taker, rapporteurs?
Good afternoon, colleagues. It's Babalwa Mbambani, a rapporteur for topic number 1. Okay. In our session, we had about 5 questions that we were to discuss on. And question number 1 was, what are the causes of hunger or poverty in South Africa? There are so many speakers who took a bite on this topic. And we had one from, the first one who took a bite was Seth Geletuke, a farmer based in Butterworth. And he mentioned that one of the causes is the income instability, and that there is a huge gap between the have and the have-nots. And also that poses a limited access to quality food. So because of the gap that exists between those who have and those who do not have, it poses that limitation in terms of the access to quality food. And another one was in the question of the inequality between the rural and urban settlement, which forces the consumer to, especially in the rural, to consume contaminated food because there are no biosecurity measures, so they end up having to eat food that is not tested. An example was made of grain in the Eastern Cape, which saw many people getting sick because they consumed food which had phyto chemicals. Yes, so that was one of the contribution for the number for number 1. And another one said there's been a shift in terms of priority in producing food, meaning that now people they tend to they are no longer they do not no longer see it as a priority to produce their own food. So that makes the availability of food very minimal because people now are not producing their own food. Another one was on the question of urbanization and modernization. We find that now people have moved from the rural to the urban, and they've also tapped into the urban lifestyle in terms of access or what they want to eat. So in their modern life, it kind of excluded agriculture as part of their lifestyle. And there was also another a comment on drought and climate change, and also the social infrastructure and distribution of a network, which is an impediment now in people producing their own food. And question number 2, which was addressing programs, including social grants focusing on various aspects of food security, and do these programs influence the food system? That was one of the questions that we were required to tackle in the group. And the first person who took a first bite was on the structural context, the opportunities of employment, and the answer was actually no. Because the grants that are used on processed foods, and there are no other economic ways to gain access to healthy foods. And also the margin of grant users putting the there's this other speaker who said, even though some people are not using the grant in order to produce food, there is also those people who are using it to produce food. So, and however, in order for us to tap in those communities or in those people who use the grant correctly to make their own food, there should be a criteria that is used to select those who are more likely to produce food with their grants. And also the grants that are also given to communities. There's another speaker who mentioned that it creates conflict among the grant recipient. We know that in our province, I think in the South Africa as a whole has adopted the cooperative a way of funding people, where the people there are told to come together and make a group. However, in those groups, there's been problems of conflict. So as a result, the interventions that the government or the private people or the NGOs are giving to those people is not taken into good use because of the conflicts. And also, I think also the monitoring also and evaluation of whatever that has been given as a grant to the people, it should be monitored closely, and such that those and it should also be inclusive of capacity building, so that okay, this speaker was saying that a comprehensive intervention should be done, not only in terms of a grant, but also look into other avenues. Okay, another speaker. It was also mentioned that even though the government or the private sector gives grants to people to produce, some of the farmers that we actually think they are farmers, they are not into farming. You find out that even though there has been intervention that has been given to the people in terms of the seeds, maybe, and seedlings, you find that some communities or some individuals end up selling those. So there is no impact in terms of the intervention that was granted, because the person who has been given the intervention is not using it, instead is selling it. Okay, coming to question number 3, on the undernutrition and stunting of children and obesity. There was this question that in the same household, you find out the children are stunted, and while there are some adults who are obese, what are some of the causes that are making that? And the first speaker mentioned that there's been a shift from using traditional foods or the indigenous foods. So you'll find out that even though you do not have money to buy the healthy food, you are unable to use the indigenous vegetables that we grew up using. So that particular household has no access, has no money to buy healthy food. At the same time, the food, the vegetables that are available in the garden that are traditional and indigenous are not being used. So that is one of the reasons you'll find that the children are stunted and people are obese. And some speakers mentioned that there is a choice of diet. You find that many people they choose more to consume unhealthy food, the processed food, the fast food, the junk food, instead of producing their own or eating healthier diets. And also, we are no longer, we've shifted from using the traditional methods of producing our own food, and that has caused a huge shift in the prices of the production inputs, making it now difficult for people at lower levels or lower bands of income to access or to buy or to purchase the production costs. So that is one of the reasons that you'll find that people now, they end up eating what is available. And now we combined question number 4 and question number 5, which was more on what can be done to improve all these challenges that have been that were identified. And the first person mentioned that we need to establish a vibrant early warning system whereby we'll organize some sessions on healthy foods. And unfortunately, this one it can be there was no particular person who was placed in terms of responsibility to do that. I think it can be everyone's responsibility to have that to establish that early warning system. Also, the partnership between departments, that is Department of Education, Department of Agriculture, as well as Department of Health, Environmental Affairs, and can form a partnership with as well as with the communities in order to make sure that agriculture or production of food is introduced at a very early stages of the growth of our kids. For instance, the province has already started with those partnerships, and where there is the success has been shown where also communities are involved, not only the Department of Education, that is the students, the teachers, as well as the technical support and the support in terms of production input from the Department of Agriculture. But where also the community is involved, we've been more successful in terms of seeing the results. Also, there was a strong point on water purification and making sure that the rivers that we use to irrigate our produce is clean, and there are no spillage from the sewage system that goes to our rivers. And also the issue of land, the available land that has to be used efficiently and effectively. Also, there should be stricter measures where they will limit access to alcohol and access to drug abuse, because we'll find out that even though the government gives out grants to people, they tend to be used to buy drugs and to buy alcohol, and thereby the children, they are the ones who will suffer the most when the parents do that. And I think that is all from my side. If anyone was in my group would like to add something, and if we have time for that, I'll allow for that person to do that. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thanks a lot, Madam. Sterling job indeed. The chance now is for the rapporteur from the other group. I'm thinking that would be the group from Dr. Mkabel. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. There is no rapporteur. I'm everything for the group, so I will try and in terms of what was.
I'm getting a.
Yes, Chairperson. There is a rapporteur for the second group. It's just that we were sharing a same room, so the speakers have a tendency to cause an echo.
Oh, I appreciate that, Mongez. In agriculture, intercropping is an option, but we all know the consequence of intercropping. So I would allow you between yourself and Dr. Mkawela to agree on who will be sharing with the plenary the discussions from the breakaway session. Thanks, Mongez.
Yes. Victor, we've agreed. Mongez is sharing.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Doc. I'm not sure, but I have a Word document that was prepared when we were taking notes, but I know that I cannot share without getting the permission. So what I'll do, I see that there's a video. So what I'll do, Chairperson, through the permission of the organizer, if possible, can he or she allow me to share the notes that were taken as I'm going through the report from the group?
Linda, are you able to assist on that score?
Or if not, I can go through the notes without uploading.
Maybe let's go through what you have scribed, what you have penned down, while we are trying to sort out you sharing.
Oh, all right. Let me try to go to the notes. I'm not sure if it's this one now. No. No, it's not this one. It's not this one. Just give me a second. I don't seem to find this online. I'm not sure, Chairperson, if it will be showing, but I've tried to project it on my side. I'm not that familiar with Zoom. Is it showing? Is there anything showing?
Not on my side. I'm not sure, Linda, on your side, but not on my side. I'm seeing the slide with the questions that were supposed to be responded to in the respective breakaways.
No, it's fine. You can keep it at that. I'll be going through this on my side for the interest of time. Yes, thanks, Chairperson. My name is Mongezi Pangolo. I'm an official here at Dr. Da. Just looking at the topic, it says building inclusive, sustainable, and competitive value chains. So I've tried to look at the background in what was given to us. So a small paragraph there says the South African food system can be classified as a combination of highly diverse value chains with a wide spectrum of producers linked to a range of formalized and sophisticated markets on the one extreme and completely unregulated and informal at the other. So the transformation of the South African food system requires a multi-dimensional approach to address the reality that approximately half of the South African population cannot afford a basic healthy diet. So that's where we are. And that's what we had to unpack as far as the transformation. How do we transform the value chains in order for them to be inclusive, sustainable, and competitive? So there was a number of questions that were given to us as a group, and one of them was stating that what are the causes of SA's diverse nature of value chains? And I must admit, in our groups, the facilitator made it clear that we don't need to follow any order. However, it's important for a person to indicate under which question will he or she be responding to. So the first question there was saying, what are the causes of SA's diverse nature of value chains? And when you look at this, you had to bear in mind, what are we talking about? We're talking about the value chain as far as from farm to fork. So from the producer to the consumer on the table, at the table. So at any given time, when you're looking at this diverse nature, you have to think about which area of focus are you talking about. And when you look at the Eastern Cape, I think the first comment that was raised there was to say that Eastern Cape by nature is rich in potential, and many times you would have seen this potential being mentioned. And what is difficult at the moment is to tap in real terms where you can measure the value, monetary value, and so on of this potential. So what we have there is that production and marketing challenges are the driving force behind the diverse nature here. And challenges lie in the continuity of supply in terms of the goods and services that may support this agricultural value chain. And that's what causes the fragmentation in terms of this value chain. So in a nutshell, as much as you would say that we are well positioned naturally as the province, but in between that, there's quite a number of challenges. And we do know, if you were to peruse a number of documents that talk to the agricultural landscape in the Eastern Cape, you are able to pick up a number of challenges, which may sometimes be unique to the Eastern Cape, but generally they cut across the South African landscape, especially when you talk about the black farmers, because most of what we are talking about begins or start at the farm. So you can have anything else if the production at the beginning is not sustainable. You are likely to have an unsustainable follow-up in terms of the value chain. You're talking about supply to the markets and anything else that comes after. So one of the things that we need to pay attention to is that area, which is the production at the farm. So that is what is indicated here in terms of the inputs from the group. And then the second question was stating which value chain should be prioritized from a broad context of limited natural resources and required shifts in diet. Again, one of the key issues here, and it will require each individual now to look at that topic in terms of food systems, whether you are just talking to food systems in terms of food production, or you are talking in terms of the industries that would otherwise assist the households to be able to purchase and consume and behave this sustainable food. So there was an indication here when you talk about value chains of cannabis, and we do know the Eastern Cape has started to engage with farmers as far as the industry of cannabis is concerned, and there's quite a lot that has been done currently. So there was a continuous mention of cannabis as one of the priorities that could enhance the food systems in the Eastern Cape. However, we need to ensure that the support is structured in such a way that it accommodates the actual needs of the farmers when it comes to this particular. But the reason why I'm raising this particular question, where we have to distinguish now, that is dependent on the facilitators, which commodities under the value, the food systems and these value chains that we're talking about fall into. For example, the cannabis that I'm mentioning now, because one may say under food systems, do you really categorize it there in terms of the context? So that's not mine to decide, but we do know that it is one of the commodities that can enhance the economy of the province. And then there was a speaker again that mentioned that when it comes to the value chains, the poultry and piggery are some of the value chains that require support, and the majority of farmers are farming in this space in terms of the Eastern Cape. So if you were to strengthen your support in these value chains, you are likely going to ensure that the Eastern Cape in terms of food systems is improved. And then again, the ocean economy in terms of, it may not necessarily be a priority, but I know in some of the documents that we speak of in terms of the Eastern Cape, there is a potential, but the challenge is lying in the fact that the industry itself may be not so organized. So it is difficult to have a targeted support as far as that. But in my view, again, that industry has always been there, meaning that it will add an additional job creation, because it's something that has not been there in the past, maybe not structured in terms of the support. So if you were to tap into that more and ensure that you structure it, you are likely going to improve what we're talking about here today in terms of the province. But there's a lot that requires to, especially along the lines of coordination in terms of that. And then again, I see that the cannabis and hemp were mentioned to say that they can assist in terms of the net value of the provinces. However, there are challenges associated with permits, classification, the infrastructure, but more so, there was an indication that there's quite a lot of exploitation that is taking place in terms of this particular commodity or industry. And then amongst others, there's also the bad debts as citizens do not pay or have the culture of payment in terms of the local markets. And then there's exploitation of small scale farmers that they should at least organize themselves and then be coordinated so that there's an interlink between the support from government and the farmers that require this support. I know I think Sanele mentioned that there are these lease farms in government, and more often than not, they are handed over to people who probably do not have the interest of producing at heart. And so most of the time they are lying there fallow. So amongst others, we need to review who is given or who is given an opportunity to farm in the lease farm by government. So the SA producers are far below in terms of production to what we consume. So that was adding to the poultry industry. And that was Mr. Golkwan who indicated that maybe we should also focus on that amongst others in terms of the priority value chain. So you can see there that the poultry industry in the Eastern Cape has a potential. And then he also mentioned that the province leads in terms of milk production. But what you see there as the major challenge is that that particular industry is belonging to a certain few minority. So it is in the hands of those few large institutions or companies, and anything outside that, you are not able to really get to the point of making real money. So again, we have to ensure that we break the barriers, whoever is given the responsibility to break the barriers in the dairy industry, because Eastern Cape, has a potential in terms of the dairy production of dairy value chain. So that is something that came up in terms of the priority value chains. Maybe I've mentioned a lot in that. The third question was saying, taking the diverse nature of value chains into consideration, what are the solutions, interventions needed to drive these? So there was inclusivity, sustainability, and competitiveness of value chain. Under inclusivity, there's an indication that there's missed the opportunity for vegetable production, which is an already existing market in most districts of the province, with smallholder farmers really working hard in terms of production, but there is this lack of access to the market because of the quality standards, as you would know. I know the speaker mentioned this local gap certification, which I do know that it has been used in many cases as a hindrance to be a barrier for most producers in the province to supply the markets. So what you do find, we do have production, you can have a good quality produce, but comes to the marketing phase, then you are faced with quite a lot of challenge. So that's something that we need to look at as stakeholders in this industry. So there's also a lack of coordination by the government in these areas, and production must be linked to already open and available markets. And also, we need to coordinate how funds are utilized as far as the support that is provided, especially in the vegetable space in terms of inclusivity. And then under sustainability, there was a mention of that we need to aggregate the farmers that are in the space of production. You don't necessarily have to focus on vegetable farmers only, because what you do find, the nature of Eastern Cape under the small scale, you have 1 hectare here, 2 hectares there, 5 hectares there, and when it comes to the contracts, it becomes difficult to maintain and sustain the production. So you would need an aggregator. So there is a space for someone who can come in as an aggregator to ensure that instead of having 1 hectare unit, you have clubbed the farmers together, and then you can coordinate the production. And that is the main thing that is difficult, because each farming unit wants to operate as a single entity and a single unit. So if we can have a coordinated aggregation there in that space, maybe we will be able to beat the sustainability. And then, of course, that will break the barriers, but more so we had to ensure that the market is ready. Otherwise, we can do these aggregations. If the market is not open and accessible, then it becomes a futile exercise again. And then the competitive nature of value chains. I mean, if you address inclusivity and sustainability, I do think that you would be able to ensure that there's competition in terms of these value chains. So address A, B, and B, and then you are sorted with the competition. And of course, the rules of engagement need to be clear to everyone who is involved. And then how can we ensure that a host of potential solutions are prioritized and effectively implemented? I do remember the HOD mentioning that we need to enable the farmers to exploit opportunities as they arise. Previously, farmers would ask for operational capital. I mean, from the beginning to the end, and the question was, if we subsidize almost everything that the farmers need, are we building an entrepreneurial culture, or we are creating a dependency syndrome? So amongst others, the model that is used by both national and provincial governments probably has a tendency to create a dependency. And the moment you pull the government support, the sustainability question goes out the window, meaning the farmers now cannot go beyond what the government can provide. So we need to look at that model and see if we cannot really tweak it to ensure that it will encourage entrepreneurs, and you support entrepreneurs in a true sense, not people that are looking for just support, not bringing anything to the table on themselves, as they are the farmers. They are driving, they should drive their development. And amongst others, the tendering system is a major problem, because a mention was made here that you've got different sort of grants, for example, in the government space, your ILIMA, CASP, and because we are tendering, you are given 1 million, and with that 1 million, you could support more than 10 farmers, but because you go through the tender system, you know that the prices to support whatever kind of support will be inflated, and to a certain extent, there's nothing you can do. So maybe that also is one of the hindrances to the nature of the support that is provided now at the different value chains. So we should focus on things that give us the highest gross margins. There was a mention of that. I know there's one lady that mentioned some of the past lecturers from the University of Fort Hare that we should target those commodities that give us high gross margins at the end. So officials must focus on what the farmers want, not the other way around. So that was that in terms of the order, but I would like to indicate again that there were comments from the chat boxes, and we did pick those, but more so they were just alluding to some of the discussions that were taking place in the main platform. So people can be able to view those from the chat boxes. So I won't be really wasting time to bring those here because they were visible to everyone, for everyone to see. I think I will end it there, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Doc. Thanks for the comprehensive summation of the discussions in your group. We really appreciate it. Maybe let me indicate upfront that the participant will be aware that the session is recorded, number one, but number two, the minutes or the documents will then be forwarded to the convener for consultation of inputs and comments that were received during the session. Before I move towards closing, I'm going to check whether the HOD would want to say a few remarks and or observations in terms of the discussions that we've been having, and also what is his view in relation to the session. HOD.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Let me first appreciate the input that has been shared with all of us here. We are grateful for this opportunity as a province to look at all aspects of food value chain systems. And Chair, I think our view is that if you want to build an inclusive food value chains, you've got to ensure that you position the state to provide appropriate support to entrepreneurial activities, because without that, you will not be able to simply grow the industries, and therefore, in how we support farmers, it must be informed by that to make them a bit more independent. Of course, as a province, you might have heard throughout, we have this diverse climatic conditions that allows us to drive a variety of commodity value chains across the province. The newest one that we are driving now is our cannabis, with focuses on medicinal, and we are now building our incubators in both Pondoland and also at Amatole. One's focusing on R&D, the other one is focusing on getting entrepreneurs to develop diverse products, of course, only for medicinal. And that's where we would want to provide appropriate support to all the producers in the province. And I think, Chair, the recommendations of this session is unlikely to be different from others, because as Doc was saying, our challenges are more or less the same, particularly Black smallholder farmers and communal. It will differ just on the extent. Key to us in this province is obviously the infrastructure, which makes the cost of doing business in the province of the Eastern Cape a bit more expensive compared to others. You are a very wide province. We need a lot of infrastructure to drive, to improve our competitiveness, which is what most of the participants were saying. Issues of land are the same, the markets, and this new approach now on aggregation in order to enable most farmers to access markets through an aggregator. It's key to how we want to drive this inclusive growth in our sector. And of course, we just wish to make sure that our farmers get support directly from the state rather than to use middlemen who takes a lot of resources. We have seen that even on the presidential initiative, where you find that the people that have these vouchers, they are not necessarily supporting people in the way in which we would want to have. So those issues have been taken into account, and we've also learned a lot from our farmers, our stakeholders. And most importantly, Chair, I think in our group, the focus was that let it not be a talk shop. Let's go out and implement. And a lot of it will revolve around how do we implement the agriculture agro-processing master plan, because a lot of the issues that came up you could easily fit in that master plan. With those words, Chair, thank you very much. We really appreciate the manner in which you've conducted this. But I'm told that Mr. Kokwana would be the last person to thank everyone. But thank you for the opportunity. Much appreciated.
Thanks a lot, Chair. Maybe we should give Mr. Kokwana a chance to say a few words before we close, because there are a couple of things that I would want to convey to the participant.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to find it very difficult after the HOD has already made his remarks in this regard, because I thought basically I was going to summarize what has been stated in the commissions, but which I think he has also actually covered it very well in terms of what we actually will be looking at. And the whole issue of how government has been doing business and how government has been trying to be the farmers themselves, I think it's one of the things that as the province we feel like it's now time to change and probably move away from that. We must give power to the farmers, and the only way to give power to the farmers to ensure that, as he has said, is actually to ensure that these farmers actually access the funds themselves, and they're able to use the funds themselves. They're able to improve their credit rating by accessing these funds, and they are able to go and bargain elsewhere in terms of what they want, and probably be able to get better prices in terms of what they are doing. Because as we all know, the way in which we are conducting business now as the state is through the tendering process, which actually doesn't allow farmers to take emerging opportunities that are coming up. And government, you always have to wait for government cycles. If applications close in August, you are out for that year, of which there could be opportunities that the farmers would actually be getting in that regard. But with that, Chair, and as I said, that I think the acting HOD has summed up it very well in terms of the deliberations and what the province would like to see being taken forward in these kind of discussions. And the fact that we realize in the province that we've got all these commodities that are currently underexploited. So we're looking forward to see how can we then make best opportunities out of those. And Chair, without wasting much time, I think if I'm allowed to thank everybody who's participated in this, we appreciate the role that has been played by the organizers, the conveners, and the fact that we're one of the provinces that we realize that we could make a meaningful contribution in this. We cannot ever underestimate the role of the participants in this, from the wide range of participants that we've had here, the commodity associations, the organized farmers, the farmers as individuals, our officials, and all the guests that were invited here. Everybody's role is really, really appreciated. And as the department, on behalf of the HOD and the MEC, we are very, very pleased of the participation and the contribution that has taken place here today. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks a lot for those closing remarks. Finally, maybe let me also take this opportunity to appreciate the cogent and rich contributions emanating from initially the plenary, then flowing into the breakaway session, and ultimately coming back into the plenary for further consolidation by rapporteurs. In terms of the schedule, there are a couple of provinces that would still that are scheduled for hosting the summit sometime next week, upon which all the contributions would then be sanitized, will be synthesized and consolidated into a single document. That single document, there would be a national synthesis dialogue that would be organized and hosted at an appropriate time, and details thereof would then be communicated via relevant protocol. Lastly, let me also reiterate what the previous speaker was saying in terms of sincerely thanking the participation of the minister and the DG, the minister and the DG in absentia, the honorable MEC taking time away from other important things to open the session, the HOD for having been with us for the entire duration of the session. All senior government officials and all officials, all the presenters, we really thank your knowledge, the reservoir of knowledge that you were able to share with the participants, so that whatever recommendations we come up with are research and knowledge-based. Farm workers, farmers themselves who put food on our table, civil society, labor reps, agro-processors and agribusinesses, but most importantly, the agriculture community of practice in general. But also, let me also appreciate the organizing team from within the department and the province, starting with the convener, Pt2, IT support, Linda, interpreters, rapporteurs, facilitators, both from the province and from the department, but also the general support from the department. Let's all observe COVID protocols. Let's stay healthy and safe. This session is